Because I am prone to doing this, I'm going to start by talking about the calendar again. Here we are, the last Sunday after the Epiphany. We are just about ready to tip into Lent, beginning this Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, to begin the 40-day journey, which, footnote, doesn't include Sundays, but I'm not on that committee. We just got to kind of move past that. But it's 40 days, 40 days. But when we think about it, we've talked, particularly the last few weeks, about how the lectionary, the readings that are assigned, is something that is common to many Christian traditions. Except this is a Sunday of deviation a little bit. In the Roman Catholic tradition in particular, and some other parts of the Christian family, Transfiguration Sunday is cast deep into the summer, in the Sundays following Pentecost. But in our tradition, and for the Revised Common Lectionary that we are a part of with many other Protestant traditions, we observe it now. And I think that it's important that we observe it now because we need it. We need it is a key piece. Now, part of the purpose of this is that we're about to dive into a part of the story that we know, right? We know how this story goes. The weather starts to get a little cooler, the days start to get shorter. We know that Advent is coming. There's going to be Lefsa in Brown Hall. We know Christmas is coming. We have calendars to tell us. And then it's the new year, and we know at some point, although that's kind of random in a way that we can't really latch our brains around, Ash Wednesday is going to come, and we're going to start this journey, which culminates in Holy Week. And we know where that goes. It goes to Easter, right? Through Good Friday, certainly, but to Easter. So we already know the story. And so we kind of sit back and relax a little bit. But I would suggest that in our lives and in the story of the world today, dare I say our nation today, we don't know the story, right? We enter into this time perhaps with a bit more anxiety than we typically do. We are beginning a journey, not knowing if we can check 2 bags, not knowing if we need shots, not knowing who knows what. And we don't know how it's going to end. Except as people of faith, we do know how all of the stories end, right? Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. We know all human stories go to that spot. But as people of faith, we know that that is not the last chapter of the story. Now, as we start this journey, one of the things that I think is so powerful about this coming season is that it is the most real and the most human. And it steps us a bit away from parts of the Christian tradition that are a little bit manic about Easter. It's Easter, 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 glory, glory, glory. When we all know, when we go out to our cars and get in and head home, did that blood work come back? Do I still have to send in that email to keep my job? How hot is it going to be in Phoenix this year? Those are the real things of this life. If we think of this journey as kind of a graph, perhaps, we are starting up on a mountaintop, but the second part of the story brings us down, right? Now they have come down the mountain, where life is not that fabulous Instagram photo you took of your dinner last night, right? That's not the way this life works. I think in our modern selves, we kind of trick ourselves into feeling all put together. We get out of the house with our shoes on the right feet and the key to the car, and it works. I am the master of my own domain. But it just takes a minute at an intersection where someone doesn't observe the lights like they should, or who knows what, and suddenly our master of the universe routine is out the window, right? We are getting a glimpse in the Transfiguration of Easter, in a way. We are seeing Christ in his glory. But the second half of the story is reminding us that we needed to see that glory because the journey between there and Easter is gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. Now, when we hear this story, Jesus goes up the mountaintop, a cloud comes in, right? A classic, we would say, in theological speak, a theophany, an appearance of God, leading the Israelites out of Egypt, a pillar of cloud by day, a pillar of fire by night. We see that Jesus is accompanied by special guests from heaven. There is a dazzling nature, and I have to say I didn't look up that Greek word. I don't know what the Greek word for dazzling is, but it sounds fabulous just in English, right? This amazing sense that there is something about Jesus that is inherently different. That in the rough spots of this world, he is someone that we can go to. And Peter gets excited, right? You see that. He has lots to say for someone not knowing what to say, as the text says. Jesus, let us make 3 dwellings up here. Now you get the sense that Jesus is kind of, so I wasn't really planning on spending that much time up here. Sometimes the word used there is tabernacle, tent, booths is another expression that would be used in some of the Jewish festivals, this idea of a temporary dwelling place. But Jesus, in a sense, in this mountaintop experience that we have perhaps all had to varying degrees, Jesus says, this is not where this life is. We need to go back down. Now, one word I did look up because it's a strange word in the text to me. They were talking about Jesus' departure that he was about to accomplish in Jerusalem. It's a clear reference to the cross as we begin to tip towards Holy Week. But departure seems like such an odd word. Like, is that Pacific time? What seat do I have? Where's the gate? I mean, it's got that kind of imagery, which feels weird for the first century. The Greek word actually is exodus, which is curious. The leaving, the exit in the back. Exodus, of course, as people of faith, immediately takes us back to the time of Moses and the departure of the Israelites from slavery and death to a promised land and new life. It's this heavy overlay on the text that we have for today. But I want to talk about what happens when they go back down. Now, in many churches, the preacher might say, this reading's too long, we're not reading this second half, and it's a downer. I'm here for the downer. There's a part of me that is a bit triggered by this second half of the text. There was a movie many years ago that it was right up my alley, except I've never seen it, won't ever see it. I don't even know what the title of it is, but the theme of the story is the lead character is played by Denzel Washington. And his son is in need of a surgery that his insurance company is not going to pay for. And so he takes the hospital staff hostage to accomplish the surgery. Now, as the parent of a son who has had 7 open heart procedures, when I hear about this father, teacher, I mean, there's any number of situations where we might feel desperate, but we think of particularly a parent for an ill child. We get dramatic language of what could only be described as epilepsy, something that is completely unexplainable and yet devastating, and a sense of spiritual uncleanness related to it. The trauma, not just to the child, but to the family. Jesus has come down from this high spot and is right back in it, right? But isn't that us to a certain extent? Every time the alarm goes off in the morning, back at it again. And it is not always the story that we want. Jesus, I asked your disciples to heal him, and they couldn't. And you hear Jesus' frustration. Guys, you had one job. Watch the shop while I was up the mountain. Come on. We are, in many ways, the disciples of Jesus. Have we been able to do the things that Jesus has called us to do? I think in the life of the church today, particularly in our current cultural climate, I think on some level we have to ask ourselves as followers of Christ, are we willing to do the things that Christ has called us to do? To feed the hungry, to help the poor, to be with those who have no clothing, to visit those in prison. Are we willing to do those things? I'm reading a book right now on other parts of the Christian community, and there is a lot of emphasis on being Bible-believing, but not so much emphasis on being Christ-following. And as Christians, you might think that would be our thing. As we move through this journey, these 40 days that are coming, hang on to today, because it is a reminder that even though we know the readings that are coming, and we know Palm Sunday and Maundy Thursday and Good Friday and Easter, and we know that narrative arc, grab onto it so that you hold it close, understanding that it is also your story. It is our story. That even though the chapters may be dark, that Easter comes, not just on the 20th of April this year, but in our own stories and in our own lives. Amen.